Hi everyone, I'm author and historian Alexander Haviaras. I'm in Glastonbury, Somerset, doing some research for my latest book, Isle of the Blessed, and to give you a tour of some of my favorite places here. This is a place that was sacred for centuries to both pagans and Christians. We're in the Isle of Avalon. I hope you enjoy this short tour. Our first stop in Insula Avalonia is Wherryall Hill. This is one of Glastonbury's most prominent hills and home to one of its most ancient treasures, the Holy Thorn. Legend has it that after the crucifixion of Christ, Joseph of Arimathea and his followers came to Glastonbury with the Holy Grail. Their boat landed on the slopes of this very hill, and when they climbed, Joseph planted his staff in the ground and it took root, and that's how the Holy Thorn was born. In the past, archaeologists discovered the remains of a dock on the slopes of Wherryall Hill, and the variety of thorn that is planted here is not native to Britain. It's actually a Syrian hawthorn. It's a very special place, and people would often come and tie wishes on ribbons to the tree. Sadly, a few years ago, vandals struck at the tree and cut the limbs off. It's a big upset to the community, but as you can see, people are still tying their ribbons and wishes to it. Glastonbury's people are resilient and full of hope, and the thorn will grow back. On the bright side, clippings of the original thorn still grow in the town, including Glastonbury Abbey grounds. This is Glastonbury Abbey. We are now standing among many ruins of what was once one of the largest abbeys in England. It was destroyed during the English Reformation by Henry VIII. But the history of this place goes much farther back in time. This site was sacred to the ancient Britons and Druids, and it was also said to be the earliest Christian settlement in the British Isles. When Joseph of Arimathea and his followers arrived here in the mid-1st century AD with the Holy Grail, they were given land by the British king Arthurian to build a chapel for their community. The Lady Chapel, the building beside me here, was originally a wattle and daub structure built by Joseph and his followers. The Lady Chapel was rebuilt in stone around AD 160. This well here, St. Joseph's Well, was dedicated to St. Joseph of Arimathea. The chapel also was a center for the cult of Mary, hence the name, the Lady Chapel. Recent excavations at Glastonbury Abbey have indicated the earliest Christian settlement in the British Isles, the earliest monastic settlement. St. David, St. Bridget, St. Columba have said to have visited here, and St. Patrick is said to have been the first abbot of Glastonbury. But this site is perhaps most famous for the discovery of two graves in 1191 after a fire. Apparently, the monks discovered the graves of King Arthur and Guinevere right here. And with the bodies was discovered this cross with an inscription that read, Hic jacet sepultus inclitus rex Arthurus in Insula Avalonia. Here lies interred in the Isle of Avalon the renowned King Arthur. There is of course some doubt about the monk's discovery, but it does indeed add a lot of mystery to this place. Right now I'm in a place that is often overlooked by the average traveler to Glastonbury. I'm in the Chalice Well Gardens, located between Chalice Hill and the slopes of Glastonbury Tor. It's strongly associated with the Holy Grail, which figures largely in Arthurian and Glastonbury's traditions. The focus of this place is the sacred spring. This is a place of peace and harmony. It's inspiring and overwhelming to be here. The water that flows out of the ground here at the Chalice Well Gardens is cold and fresh, and it creates this red color on everything that it touches. Scientifically speaking, Chalice Well is an iron-rich spring that flows out of the Mendip Hills to the north and comes out of the ground here at the Chalice Well Gardens. Spiritually speaking, this place was extremely sacred to the ancient Britons who believed this was the blood of the goddess. To ancient Christians, this was the blood of the Holy Grail, which many believe was buried here by Joseph of Arimathea. It's believed that there was a Druidic college here at Glastonbury. And these two yew trees formed part of an avenue of yew trees that led up to the slopes of Glastonbury Tor just over there. As with everything else in Glastonbury, there is an Arthurian connection as well. In Thomas Malory's Morte d'Arthur, Lancelot is said to have retired as a hermit, and the Chalice Well Gardens area is the place they believe he retired to. After thousands of years, people still come to be healed by the waters of the Chalice Well, and in a way, it's comforting to be in a place where people still believe in miracles. If you ever come to Glastonbury and find yourself in need of repose, this is the place to be. Next, we're going to meet two giants. In a moment, I'm going to introduce you to two giants. Their names are Gog and Magog. In the Old Testament book of Ezekiel, Gog and Magog are evil powers to be overcome. In Geoffrey of Monmouth's medieval bestseller, Historia Regum Britanniae, The History of the Kings of Britain, when Brutus, a descendant of the Trojan hero Aeneas, came to Britain in 1130 BC, his man Corineus fought a giant named Gog Magog. There are other stories of giants named Gog and Magog throughout the British Isles, but the two giants of Glastonbury have nothing to do with war, pain, or suffering. These are the last of the great oaks of Avalon. Gog and Magog used to be part of an avenue of oaks, a Druidic processional way that led all the way to the Tor. Sadly, the avenue of oaks was cut down in around 1906 to make room for farming. But Gog and Magog still stand sentry here, receiving offerings and ready to tell their ancient story to those who will listen. It's wonderful to see these old friends again after so many years. Right now, I'm standing on the most iconic hill in Glastonbury, the Tor. This hill juts out of the Somerset levels like a mist-shrouded island. The tower behind me, from the Church of St. Michael, was built in the 14th century, but habitation here goes back to 3000 BC. Glastonbury Tor was an important religious site for early pagans, Christians, and the Druids. In the Dark Ages, it was a stronghold as well. And the terraces around the edge form a sort of labyrinth that many believe was used as a processional way by Druids in ceremonies. Some believe that a dragon sleeps inside the hill. The ancient Celts believed that the Tor was the gateway to Anwen, the Celtic otherworld, and home to the Lord of Anwen, Gwynap Nud, who led the wild hunt at Samhain. Samhain is what we know as Halloween today, the Celtic New Year. The gates of Anwen were said to open here, and the dead would pour out of the underworld to hunt through the night. The Tor is most often thought of as the heart of the Isle of Avalon in Arthurian lore. In the ancient tale, the spoils of Anwen, Arthur and his men are said to enter the otherworld here at the Tor in order to take back the magical cauldron of plenty. The Tor may be the Grail Castle, the castle of Corbinic mentioned in the story. Another belief is that Arthur himself sleeps beneath this grassy mound until he is once more needed in the world. Glastonbury Tor really is a peaceful and magical place. I love coming here, climbing to the top, and just sitting and looking out at the countryside. It also helps me to feel in touch with a really ancient past. I'm sad to be leaving here, but as Glastonbury is a place of faith, I have to hope that my path will lead me back here someday. I hope you've enjoyed this short journey into the Isle of Avalon with me, and that you've been inspired by the ancient places we visited. Sites that were sacred to the ancient Britons, the Druids, and early Christians. Places out of history and myth linked to the magic of the otherworld, the Holy Grail, and to Arthur himself. Some might dismiss the tales outright, but let's not forget that myths, legends, and folk tales all have some element of truth to them. And really, who are we to dismiss the tales of our ancestors? Myths and legends meant a great deal to them, and however much truth there is or isn't in those, the fact that they were held in such high regard means that they are worthy of remembrance by ourselves. Thank you for joining me on this special journey. See you next time. To read more about my books featuring these sites and my blog series about the Isle of Avalon, In Insula Avalonia, just visit eaglesanddragonspublishing.com. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for the Eagles and Dragons newsletter to get a free book and access to special offers just for subscribers. I'm Alexander Haviaras, and I bid you farewell from the Isle of Avalon.